Okay, so let's see. So steatotic liver disease, my speakers before me have discussed it. So there's metabolic dysfunction associated disease, and there could be steatohepatitis. So earlier it used to be known as NASH and NAFLD. Now we call it MASH and MAFLD. And this was MAFLD, which was done by my hepatology colleagues in the USA. And then it got on to endocrinology. But believe me, fatty liver disease is an endocrine disorder. Please don't let hepatology take it over. Sorry, Ashish. So you must have some cardiometabolic risk factors to be able to screen people. I would not tell you to screen everybody with type 2 diabetes because it is impossible to screen everybody with type 2 diabetes for MAFLD. We simply don't have the money or the resources. So, if 30-40% of people with type 2 diabetes have MAFLD, those are the ones you want to pick up, not unnecessarily waste time in screening ones who don't have any metabolic criteria, cardiometabolic risk factors. So that's the thinking in the US at least right now. And we're going to write more guidelines. So basically, the BMI, the fasting glucose, the blood pressure criteria, triglycerides, cholesterol, etc. These are very important. Now, make sure you exclude other forms of fatty liver before you jump into MASLD, and that's alcohol, which is very, very common and prevalent. And like Dr. Ashish said, once you diagnose them not having anything else, they don't have other forms of hepatitis like autoimmune or whatever it is, and you hone it down to MASLD, they must not drink anymore. So alcohol must be completely stopped, okay? So that's important. So this is just the importance of that slide. Natural history, we all talked about it. Why is it important for us to treat this disease? Because it's a silent disease. It takes a long time to develop, and for people to get cirrhotic, it's a small percentage of patients, and it is not that fast. So from F0, to get to a stage where you're having a decompensated cirrhosis could be 33 years. Now imagine how much time that's taking. It's a chronic disease, takes very long time. People present to the clinic, just like he said, with fatigue and upper quadrant pain. And that's all they have is fatigue. Some people just say, I'm tired all the time. You got to think it through. So this is the reason why we want to treat, because you don't want to miss those people that are going to progress. So the F3, F4, very important, F2, F3 to prevent, and maybe F1, F2 to get it back into F0. And of course, F4, it's already too late and you have to go to Dr. Ashish, and then you don't come to me. So lifestyle is very important. They told me to talk about therapy, very important therapy. First rule, lifestyle, lifestyle, lifestyle. So make sure you optimize their cardiometabolic risks. So if they have these features, make sure their diet is appropriate, Mediterranean, like he said, olive oil, etc. And make sure they exercise regularly, because no medication will work if they do not have lifestyle changes. So that has to be done first. And treat all the comorbidities. You must treat those. If you don't give them the statins, you don't give them the blood pressure control, you don't treat their diabetes properly, you can't treat fatty liver. So those are very important to do. So the first thing is weight loss beyond lifestyle. So most people cannot lose weight that easily. We all know that, right? We all go through cycles of weight gain, weight loss, whatever it is. So the important thing is, beyond lifestyle modification, what are you going to do? Yes, there are bunches of drugs that are available. They're listed here. And there are some that are now approved for treating fibrosis. This is not treating fatty liver by itself, it's treating fibrosis. And the secondary drugs, or things that can help with it, drugs or other modalities, would be like weight loss medications, which are generally causing you to lose weight, and that is helping in improving your fatty liver disease, or you're having surgical interventions. But if you have to target fatty liver disease by itself, steatosis, then you have to attack the drugs that are liver-centric. Otherwise, they're not going to work. So generalized, you can give other medications as well. So what are the drugs optimizing cardiometabolic risks? We all know about them. We give them to treat diabetes, we treat them for weight loss, etc. So you treat type 2 diabetes with GLP-1 receptor agonists, co-agonists, SGLT2 inhibitors, metformin, insulin in case of cirrhosis. We are not going to try anything else. Dyslipidemia, statins. Obesity, again, GLP-1, receptor agonist, co-agonist like tirzepatide, bariatric intervention. So this is the hallmark. How do you divide them up? So treat the diabetes, treat the dyslipidemia, treat the obesity. US FDA, the first drug that came on the market, took everyone by surprise because everyone was so busy with the big companies, pharmas, they forgot that there's a small little company sitting somewhere called Madrigal, and they came up with their first drug, which got US FDA accelerated approval. You have to remember this, it's not approved for everything, accelerated approval. We're still waiting for the long-term data to come through. So they've done the first 52 weeks, they got accelerated approval for F2, F3. These are non-cirrhotics. If they have cirrhosis, you may not put them on this drug. So that is the condition. Now, how this drug works? It's interesting. It's a thyroid hormone receptor beta agonist. And it's given in patients with MASH, like I told you, F2, F3. It is not used for cirrhosis. Resmetirom works with different things. So it has all these mechanisms of action. It works, as I mentioned, directly on the liver, works to upregulate mitochondrial biogenesis, beta oxidation, reduces hepatic triglyceride accumulation, improves cholesterol metabolism in that way, reduces hepatic triglycerides. So as it's working on these pathways, you know that it's attacking the liver and it's trying to help the liver heal itself. So this is what the indication is for. And its recommended dosage is based upon body weight, less than 100 kilograms, usually is 80 milligrams, and 100 milligrams for patients over 100. And usually there are other caveats to it. I'm not going to talk about it. You can read up the papers. I know it's not used in this country, but I still needed to show it because they asked me to talk about all the drugs that are approved and in the pipeline. So the other drugs, this is now weight loss, incretin-based therapy. This is not directly on the liver, but one of them has now been given FDA approval again. That was semaglutide. So semaglutide is now approved as a drug for treatment of MAFLD MASH. Tirzepatide, I put it in there because they are doing studies now. They're looking at steatohepatitis and liver fibrosis, but we do not have any approval yet. Now, what's in the pipeline? A lot of exciting drugs on the pipeline. I don't know how many will end up where they should be, but there is at least a thought process behind why these drugs are being on the pipeline. So one is fatty acid synthase. So what does it do? Fatty acid synthase is a step in the DNL pathway, de novo lipogenesis. So de novo lipogenesis pathway is when you drink all these colas and sugary drinks, it piles fat in the liver, lipid synthesis. So this is why we tell our patients, don't drink colas. Coca-Cola and all this, completely stop drinking sugary beverages. So you need to just stay on very low, the non-calorie I would say water is the best thing to drink. Just have them drink water. So what does this do? It mainly acts on the stellate cell, and it increases basically fibrogenesis, cell activation. So if you block this, using this FASN, then it will reduce fatty acid triglycerides in the liver. It will decrease cytokines, chemokines, cell activation, decrease fibrogenesis and cell activation. So it's blocking that pathway. So this is a drug that is being developed in the US. The trial has started, Fascinate-2. It's a biopsy trial designed focused on histological endpoints. And they're going to study these people up to 52 weeks, do a MRI PDFF, biomarkers and biopsy, and then we'll know what's going on. It's in the pipeline. The drug is showing good activity with this, so they're doing further studies on it. So the name of this drug is denifanstat, directly inhibits the 3 hallmarks of MASH. So basically it's blocking steatosis, helps with reducing inflammation, and prevent fibrosis. So we'll see what happens. It has approximately a 12-hour half-life, so it can be given once a day orally, which is a good thing because you can take an oral medication. There's another one in the pipeline. This is coming up at all. And Rohit Lumba from the west coast of USA just published this in Lancet in 2025. He showed this drug DGAT2, which is diacylglycerol or acyltransferase 2 enzyme, catalyzes this final step of triglyceride synthesis in the body. And when you block it, and I've shown you the arrow way it's blocking it, so this is a dual targeting strategy. So research has shown that when you combine this DGAT2, it with the stellate cell FSN that I showed you before, so it's blocking both. So one is blocking the, attenuating NASH in preclinical models. They did some animal knockdown studies, which I won't show you. And it shows that if you combine these two drugs, the DGAT2 and the FASN, you can get a better target because you're blocking two different pathways. So the DGAT is blocking the diacylglycerol into triglyceride formation, and the FSN from the ACC, where it goes from acetyl-CoA to malonyl-CoA and then down to palmitate and lipid synthesis. So if you put these two together, it'll work better. So it has received a FDA fast track designation for NASH, for MASH actually, previously NASH. But we'll see what happens, okay? Just because I'm showing it doesn't mean these are going to be successful. They're working on them. So then there's another class of drugs called FGF21s. And there's all these pathways that this FGF21 works on, and hopefully the combination of this, because it's a heterogeneous disease, as you can see, there's action in the heart, there's, in the vasculature, in the muscle, etc. But the issue with this drug is it's injectable. It has to be injected. And so it is less favorable than the oral medications, but again, this different pathways that it works on to reduce steatosis and fibrosis may be useful. We'll find out. So there's several FGF21 analogs in the landscape. They've tried seven FGF21 analogs, and 2 FGF21 mimetics have been tested. The ones that are in development are shown in green. The ones that they terminated are in red on the left-hand side, and you can see there are 4 of these here, and they can be dosed based upon their half-life. So they can go Q weekly, Q twice weekly, or every 4 weeks, etc. And these drugs are all being tested right now in clinical trials. And I've given you the references so you can read up the early stage development data in there. So again, these drugs are all in the pipeline. They're being tested in phase 2s and phase 3s. And Dr. Rinella, a friend of mine, has shared this slide with me. You'll see it says they're ending in 2029, some of them in 2032. So it's a few years out yet. But nevertheless, we'll find out if any of these drugs actually work to prevent not only resolution of MASH, but also in cirrhotics. And of course, cardiometabolic effects and target engagement. So there are these drugs that I showed you. They also work through that. So they are helping, they consider them to be weight neutral for some of them, and some cause weight loss. And then glycemic control, there's one, but the others are modest, and lipid control is very strong. So we'll see what happens with this. Okay, last thing was genetics. And this is again futuristic. HSD17 beta 13 is a major genetic target for MASH because you can use a loss of function mutation which protects against liver fibrosis and chronic injuries. The paper's out there, you can read it up because there's not that much time. Then there's PNPLA3, which is a common genetic variant, and it encodes this isoleucine to methionine substitution in position 148 in the PNPLA3 protein. And that's what causes steatosis, inflammation, fibrosis, cirrhosis, etc. And so now they're studying phase 1s where they're showing that if you use the right target for this, you can reduce liver TG content. So this is being used. And again, Rohit Lomba is working on this. Data will be coming out. So there's a whole bunch of treatments. And I know this is from India. So I picked it, and Dr. Ashish Kumar helped me with this. He shared this slide with me, the data, so I put it together. These are all the drugs that you guys are using here. And we have maybe used some of them, we don't do the others. Saroglitazar we don't use for sure. And obeticholic acid, of course, we don't use at all. And but I wanted to show you. And of course, everyone knows why obeticholic acid didn't work in America, because it caused severe adverse events like intense itching, significant increases in LDL cholesterol, and potential increased risk for diabetes, gallbladder inflammation, and bile duct stones. So of course, it was not approved by the US FDA. And it was a FXR receptor agonist. So the management goals, and I want to finish here, is make sure they exercise. It's like a management team. Behavioral health is very important. You can't treat people for MASH if their behavior doesn't change. So behavior is number one.
Conclusion, ma'am.
Nutrition, primary care, exercise physiologists. Together, you can treat this disease. And I wanted to take 1 second to show why I do this work. That's my inspiration, my grandchildren. So thank you for your attention.